All right, we're doing it. The official 2024 Titan rankings, ranking every Titan in the game, all 17 Titans from worst to best. And when ranking these, think of what the Titan is best at, and that's kind of how we're going to rank the Titan. So starting at number 17, unfortunately, it's the Arthur. I love the Arthur as much as the next guy, but there's some very obvious problems with the Arthur. The number one problem is the lack of durability and lack of speed. It also has a lack of module slots, which isn't great. Decent firepower, and the strength of the Arthur is definitely the physical shield, the most durable physical shield in the game. I think it's around 1.8 million HP just on the physical shield. But once that thing goes down, you're very vulnerable. And then if a player has like flamethrowers or rockets, that physical shield becomes absolutely useless. The blast wave ability is decent, and then of course the other ability is just the shielding to put the shields in front of you. It has some very obvious flaws, but I wouldn't say the Arthur is like by far the worst robot in the game. I feel like a legendary pilot could actually bring it back and put it way higher on the rankings, but unfortunately it's at number 17 for this list. At number 16 we have the Kid Titan, one of my favorite Titans, but also one of the originals. I'm putting the Kid above the Arthur because it has resistance when you use the full action, and then it actually has way more durability. Like, you can actually make the Kid a tank with over 1 million HP. You can't do that with the Arthur. And when you go in the full action ability, you get the increased defense points. Then the stovetop ability is like a built-in cinder weapon. And one thing to remember as well, when you use that full action, you get access to your alpha slot. And then when it goes back, it always reloads. So you'll never use your alpha weapon and it'll be out of ammo, which is very useful and something that the Eiffel doesn't even have. So something pretty underrated, but that's the Kid at number 16. At number 15, this might be surprising. I'm actually putting the Ao Ming because the Ao Ming brawling is terrible. The weakness of the Ao Ming is the low durability, but with longer range weapons, you'll actually see players running longer range weapons in Masters and Champion League on this thing if they don't have anything better. And that blinding weapons, Tone and Folger, Gendarme, those type of weapons seem to work well. But so the strength of the Ao Ming is the firepower. It's always had a really good firepower. But the weakness is it's a massive, easy to hit target in the air, massive hitbox, low durability, and it's so freaking slow. And the healing ability is pretty bad as well. If you can somehow get the ultimate Ao Ming pilot, it works great on here, but obviously most players aren't going to be able to get that. So the Ao Ming, just at face value with long-range sniper weapons, I'm putting it number 15. Remember, we're ranking these Titans based on what they're best at. So the Ao Ming, it's at its best, it's a good sniper. Then, number 14, Minos. This one might be a little bit surprising as well. The Minos, the issue with the Minos is low durability, but its strength is its ability. Its reflector is one of the best abilities in the game, and to this day, when you're facing a Minos and it puts up that reflector, you just cannot shoot at it. It's just a waste of ammo to fire at that thing, and it's going to deal more damage to you than it does the Minos. And also the ability, 3 beta slots isn't a ton of firepower, and the durability is mediocre. But with the Rush or the Stampede or whatever it's called now, it actually can get around pretty fast. So it's not the worst Titan in the game, but it could also benefit from a few buffs and also maybe even a legendary pilot. And of course, with the Minos, do not even bother running long-range sniper weapons. It is a brawler. That's how the ability works. That's how like the Stampede Rush ability works. You have to get close. Next up at number 13, we have the Myrmids. The Myrmids, unlike the previous Titans on this list, actually had its own meta when there was a lot of great Titans in the game. It's very unique in the sense that its ability gives you stealth, which I think no other Titan still has its own stealth ability, with the hard rain built-in rockets, and then the EMP is even more useful, attacking enemies that rely on their ability. You EMP them, go up in the air in stealth, and they're cooked. The weakness is really when it's on the ground, very low HP. I wouldn't call it a glass cannon because the firepower isn't amazing, but you can take out almost any Titan if you can EMP them and then go up into stealth. And then mediocre, I mean pretty decent firepower, but low HP. So next up at number 12, we have the Ether. The Ether is edging out the Myrmids because of that force field and because of it's the same firepower as the Myrmidons, but I think it's just a bit better in the sky and not as vulnerable on the ground. The Myrmidons and Ether, you could honestly probably switch them back and forth, but I'm putting the Ether slightly ahead. The Force Field did get nerfed a while back. It used to be the meta when it had the Skyward ability and had an amazing force field, and then it got nerfed, and then now it also has the Vigor as the other ability, speeding up and healing at the same time. So Ether Myrmids, pretty similar, but I think the Ether is going to be a bit better. Then at number 11, the Nodens. This one you might expect to be higher, but the problem with healing robots, I've said it a bunch, there's so many ways to heal your robot now and heal your own great HP that you don't really need healing bots anymore. And that's why healing robots have become less useful in the game. Like the Mender is probably the best healing robot, but it's because it can heal great HP. There's the Avalon, there's repair amps, there's so many different ways to heal, so healing's not as useful. But on the bright side, the Nodens has good firepower, great durability, and you can actually brawl with this thing as well. I wouldn't really recommend as much sniping with the Nodens, but if you load it up, we've done it before, load it up with durability, use high firepower brawling weapons, it's a pretty good option. So definitely not the bottom of the barrel, but I would call it, you know, a top 5 Titan either. So the next up, something that just edges out the Nodens, it can kind of do what the Nodens can, plus more, is the Heimdall. I've expressed my love for the Heimdall before. Because the Heimdall, remember, it can heal, it can brawl, and it gets the damage boost as well. I'm putting it slightly above the Nodens simply because it has great firepower, it has great durability, it can heal, and it has the damage boost with a physical shield. Not to mention, it also has that same like suppression kind of thing that the Nodens has, kind of a similar ability, but instead it's a suppression grenade instead of just like a straight up suppression. So yeah, there's a lot of different weapons you can use in the Heimdall. I always prefer high firepower, like whether it's Cinder, freeze rockets, sonic weapons work as well. And if you have flamethrowers, you can get a hold of them, probably use the Heimdall, but I'm assuming if you can get the flamethrower weapons, you probably want to run an even better Titan. But yeah, so Heimdall edging out the Nodens for that number 10 spot. And yeah, Cinder as well, they're not the greatest weapon, but they're insanely fun. So next up, beating the Heimdall at number, what do you get? Number 9 now? Am I messing up the numbers? Is the Sharinga. The Sharinga has fallen quite a bit since the last time we did Titan rankings, simply because the Sharinga used to be by far the most powerful robot or Titan in the game for a very long time. And then in the last couple months, we've got multiple robots that now have more firepower than the Sharinga. And the problem with the Sharinga as well is the firepower was the reason it was really usable, and it still has good firepower, but its durability is pretty mediocre, and it's a big, slow target. And you have that phase exile ability, but that's really your only defense, because if you use that and somebody else catches you out in the open, you're probably going down. So that's Sharinga. I think the Sharinga's dropped quite a bit in the recent months as newer, more powerful Titans have kind of overtaken it, but still a decent option. It's pretty fun as well. So then, next up at number 8, we have the Sirius Titan. The Sirius, probably the best healing Titan robot in the game, but it's not just the healing. It's the combination of healing turrets, assault turrets, increased speed, and self-healing, and tons of durability. I think you can get it to around like, what, 1.3 million HP pretty easily. Not much firepower, but that assault turret is surprisingly effective if you can get a player in like fire the turret over cover and they're just sitting there absorbing the sonic damage. So definitely a good option. The Sirius Titan, I'd pick it over any of those robots we've said, and that's why it's on this spot. Better than Nodens, better than Heimdall, and even better than the Sharinga. And it's a good support bot as well. Then we have Newton. This might be surprising. The Newton was nerfed so bad in the last rebalance that it's fallen so far. I've said this before, and I got some flack for this. I feel like the Newton was only good because of the levitation. And if Pixonic just nerfed the levitation, I feel like it wouldn't have been that overpowered, but they didn't just nerf the choke ability. They nerfed the durability, the both abilities, and then they also nerfed the best weapons for the Newton, the Fulgurtonans, making it way worse than before. It was never an amazing brawler, but man, they absolutely crushed all the stats, and that's why the Newton is lower. But it's still usable, but not top 5. Next up is the Indra. The Indra is still hanging around the upper leagues and is still a very usable robot. That ability, what's it called? I'm just going to call it a phase shift ability because it's a very weird word. The phase shift ability on the Indra is still amazing. It removes all negative effects, rust, suppression, healing, everything. The lasso ability, I've never loved the lasso, but it's decent enough, and having that phase shift constantly charge, you can pretty much avoid just about anything if you time it properly. And then brawling weapons as well work best with the Indra. I like sonic weapons, Mahavajra, freeze rockets are not bad, flamethrowers if you can get them, those kind of weapons. Then next up, beating out the Indra is the Rook. The Rook is still very, very good. It seems like it's pretty low because it's number 5, but wait until you hear about the others. Rook, still an absolute tank. It's got nerfed multiple times, and it's somehow still hanging around. The physical shields have been nerfed, they're still very effective, and if you get these repair amps, these upper Titans in the upper leagues really rely on repair amps, so I'm just assuming players have repair amps, but even if you don't, I guess it's still gonna be the same thing. Rook's very viable, decent firepower, amazing durability, and the physical shields are almost like a bonus, and if you can get those repair amps going, if you have repair amps, then it's pretty much gonna be very difficult to take down. At number 4, the Luchador, it just completely refuses to leave the meta, and even though it has survived a series of nerfs over the years, it is still one of the best Titans in the game, and it proves to be the best free-to-play option of all the Titans, because you kind of know what you're going to get. It's a super tank. Most players run double damage controllers, double repair amps in the upper leagues anyways. It's extremely difficult to take down, even for the most powerful Titans in the game, and it may not be the best Titan, but it can give any Titan like a run for its money in the right situation. And then obviously double reflectors like the Frog Splash and the ultimate defense ability, both are ridiculous, and then the durability is so crazy. And I would definitely recommend brawling weapons for the Luchador. At number 3, I'm going to include every Titan, so I'm considering this a separate robot, but if you don't want to consider a separate Titan, just take it out of the list. The Ultimate Ao Ming. The Ultimate Ao Ming is weird, because it has 4 alpha slots, which is insane, but it heavily relies on the legendary pilot of the Ultimate Ao Ming. So I'm just going to cram those together for this situation, but if you run those together, the strength is its firepower, obviously 4 alpha slots. The repair, which is dependent on the legendary pilot, is very effective at keeping the robot alive. And then the stealth as well is extremely useful to just buy yourself a few seconds to not take damage and to fire at enemies. So number 3 is Ultimate Ao Ming. Number 2, Bedweir. The Bedweir, the newest Titan in the game, and it is legitimately impossible to kill most of the time. And it could probably be number 1, but I'm sticking with it at number 2. And if there's groups of Bedweirs, like clans or squads with Bedweirs, it's pretty much impossible to take them down. Once the repair amps kick in, which really anyone who has a leveled up Bedweir is going to be running repair amps. Once those repair amps kick in, it's pretty much indestructible unless you have some kryptonite for it. So obviously the strength of the Bedweir is the durability, but it has no weaknesses. The super short cooldown on the absorber shield, which converts incoming damage to durability, decent firepower, decent speed, it really has no weaknesses. And then we get to number 1. Number 1 is a combination of insane firepower and speed and durability, the Eiffel. So many different weapon builds work with the Eiffel because it's 3 alpha slots, 2 beta slots. But the reason it's better than even the Ultimate Ao Ming is because of the dash, which the cooldown is way too short for, the speed, and then repair amps. Players put repair amps on the Eiffel and it becomes impossible to take down. It's a combination of a tank and then also like a super firepower Titan. It has no weaknesses, and that's why it's kind of dominating. And the Eiffel is really the only Titan that can take down Bedweirs. The homing bullet build is probably going to be the number 1 option for this thing, but really sonic weapons, Freeze rockets are pretty decent. The flamethrowers are part of the meta right now. It has no weaknesses, and that's why it's ruling #1 in the game. But it's hard to imagine this thing also isn't going to get nerfed in the next couple months. So that is the full list, all 17 Titans. The full list, I'll put it up on the screen. Eiffel, Bedweer, Yue Yao Ming, all the way down. The lower on the rankings, it's a bit harder because they're a bit more, I don't know, dependent on who's running them. But I feel like this is a pretty decent list for myself. I know some people are going to complain. But there it is, the full ranking of Titans 2024. Hopefully you guys can take something from this, or maybe you think it's garbage. But either way, peace out. Banana ham sandwich.